power. Ro, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you, Sheila. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. There's a lot going on with this, isn't there? Now, Lisa Nandy has been asked about it too. Your thoughts, your initial thoughts?
Well, I disagree with that because we have to look at it in terms of who this game benefits. I mean, does it benefit the England cricket team? No. Does it benefit the team, the game? No. Does it benefit the people of Afghanistan, particularly women and girls? No. Who does it benefit? The Taliban are the only one who benefits from this. And you have to look at, if you understand Afghanistan, if you studied Afghanistan, you'd know the tribal political dynamics of the country. You cannot separate the cricket team from the Taliban in a sense that these athletes, this team has been a propaganda trophy for a section of the Taliban, namely the Haqqani network. That very, very, that incredibly vicious group within the Taliban who've prided itself in using child suicide bombers against hospitals, schools,
Mm.
all sorts of places. But also, the athletes who, the cricketers, they've not been bystanders. They've actually been a participant in that being a trophy propaganda for the group. If you look at the cricketers on social media, you can see them cozying up with senior Haqqani leaders, sitting with them cross-legged, sipping teas, and as women and girls are being persecuted, of course, other ethnic minorities
Some
as well.
players
So
have
it's
spoken out, though, haven't they? Male players.
no, you don't see any
Oh, my.
Afghanistan spokespersons. I mean, the superstar of the Afghan cricket, and he had said previously on an interview that women's places are in the kitchens. Now, by Taliban standard, that is quite moderate, given one of the recent decrees the Taliban have issued that women are not to be
Well,
seen
I'm
in kitchens
Well,
as
as
well.
I'm speaking to you, I'm just trying to find the detail of this because when I spoke about this 2 weeks ago, I read out a quote from an Afghan cricket star. I mean, he may be a former cricket star, I don't know. I'm
Mm.
double checking. Who had criticised early at the tail end of last year. He criticised the Taliban move on removing women from healthcare. And he said it was too much. It was endangering women, and I'm not sure he spoke specifically about cricket, but he kicked back against that move. So that's it's just worth saying in the context of what you've just said.
And I understand. I mean, I've not seen that comment, unfortunately, but you have to look at it holistically that all individuals of these team have been, active participant of being a propaganda part of the Taliban propaganda machine.
We're
And
normalizing. This is it. We're normal.
normalizing, I mean, this superstar had his wedding a few weeks ago, a few months ago. You had, a very lavish ceremony where there's no women to be seen. You had Taliban figures in attendance. You had Taliban security guards
Mm,
outside. It was incredibly lavish for a cricketer in a country where, you've got gender apartheid,
mm.
where, you got to remember Afghanistan is the worst place to be a woman or a girl, and the England cricketers have to be really thinking hard about the consequences of normalizing whilst we try to pride ourselves on standing for some principle at least. Of course, the world is in a very difficult place at the moment. Principles are always sacrificed for expediency. We shouldn't fall into this, and I think sports are better with not going along with
Well,
this.
let me maybe give you some hope here. Afghanistan's top cricket stars Rashid Khan and Mohammed
Mhm.
Nabi urged the
Yeah.
Taliban. This is from December of last year, of 2024. Have urged the Taliban to reconsider their ban on women's access to medical education and training, describing the move as deeply unjust. Education holds a central place in Islamic teaching, emphasising the pursuit of knowledge for both men and women. This was the T20 captain Rashid writing in a social media post. The Quran highlights the importance of learning and acknowledges the equal spiritual worth of both genders.
And this all in good. This is good. But the same cricketers that you've just named, if you look at social media, they've been sitting cross-legged with the leaders of the Haqqani network. And
And
these are the
and they're
people
playing, are they, in
who've
this game?
no, they're not playing, they're cozying up together, they're
No, but
sharing
are
tea
they in the
together.
squad, is what I'm saying.
The players.
Yeah.
What did Rashid Khan? I mean, the superstar. If you look at his
Yes, I'm
name in the
asking you, are they
Haqqanis,
playing in this next
yes,
series?
yes,
Yes,
he is
that's
an
all. Yeah.
absolute superstar of the game.
Mm,
So, he is the flag bearer for what is the Afghanistan national team, which is nothing national about it. If you know Afghanistan's dynamics, this team comes from a small Pashtun belt in eastern Afghanistan, where the rest of the country, just imagine if a small town, Llandudno in Wales, for example,
Produce the entire
were
England football
represent
team.
the entire England, or the Team GB cycling team, for example, were represented by a small group of players,
Mm.
a small group of sports people from Llandudno, and nothing against Llandudno, but how would that look? I
Mm.
mean, Llandudno is absolutely a beautiful place.
I'm sure they won't take offence in the analogy that you're using. Um, it, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because we've seen this row during the apartheid years in South Africa, and sport was a powerful lever that was pulled in those years, wasn't it? Boycotting it, I mean.
Yes, and you look at, just imagine being a woman in Afghanistan, a girl in Afghanistan who prohibited from going outside even, raising your voice in public, be seen in the kitchen at all.
I know.
The Taliban decree said, houses should have men hide walls against their windows so women cannot be seen. Now, just imagine every time the cricketers of this team plays, if they have a good game of victory, the Taliban gets out, the Taliban soldiers get out with their Kalashnikovs firing into the air, celebrating that victory. Now, you're a woman sitting in your kitchen, not allowed to be seen, not allowed to be heard, not allowed to go to school, not allowed to be educated, not allowed to be considered as a human being,
Mm.
hearing all those celebratory shots. And of course, sports a big thing. And the people of Afghanistan, of course, right to have a football team, a sports team. They're all football mad people. But of course, sports plays a big, important part in supporting the Afghan people, because more than ever, all these women and girls in the country need allies. They cannot fight the Taliban without allies outside Afghanistan. Apartheid in South Africa didn't fall without allies of the South African people. Now, there have been push in Parliament and in other places where they're trying to get gender apartheid recognized legally, so that the Taliban can be held to account. But I think bit by bit, drip by drip, if you normalize playing cricket with a team who's being used as a propaganda tool for the Taliban, and then what's next?
Can I
You'll continue to fall into this slippery slope.
Can I just put this text to you that I've just noticed coming in?
Hmm.
That your response to it would be interesting as an Afghan person yourself.
Hmm.
It's from John, who says, "Sorry, Sheila, but that's their culture. Why are you imposing your own standards on them? And sport is sport. Not everything needs women's rights shoehorned into it. Keep your politics and activism to yourself." Oh, John's a charmer, isn't he, Ro?
I don't know what to say to John. I
I
mean,
don't either.
I
That's
mean,
why I'm
what
going to
what
get you to do
value
it.
what value does the what human decent values does the Taliban represent? I mean, what human dignity value did the Nazis represent? What about ISIS? What do they have in common with any civilized human being at all? And of course, politics has never been far away from sports. Sports and politics, you might be told that they're not mixing, but they're all part of each other. Of course, you can see sports washing, sports activism. Sports is a symbol of what we can do together, bringing people, showing the good in people. So if it's about showing the good in people, show the good in people in support of women and girls in Afghanistan who've been persecuted. It's about decency and dignity
It's
there. And
also it's also not Afghan culture, is it? For women to be
well,
so denuded of any rights. I'm not asking Afghanistan to look like Britain. It doesn't need to look like Britain, of course it doesn't. But this utter degradation and denigration of women as people, as individuals, that's not Afghan's culture, is it?
Afghanistan is a multi-ethnic, colorful country where you've got a mosaic of people with different backgrounds, different cultures, different languages, different histories even. But nowhere ever in the history of the country have women been treated the way they are. It's as if, the Taliban leaders who, cozying up with these cricketers when they get back to Afghanistan, get up in the morning and thinking, hmm, we've not really done this to women yet. Let's issue a decree to do that. and there is no bottom to the depravity of this group. So
How does it make you
it,
feel when a British person like John is so relaxed about it, or appears to be on the basis of that text?
well, I am a British citizen. I am a proud British citizen. I was a parliamentary candidate in the last general election for the Labour Party. I'm one of the few failed wannabe politicians of the last general election. And but I am a Brit. I'm a proud Brit. I'm
But with
also
your
I don't.
your own experience of fleeing Afghanistan as well in mind, when
I
you
always,
are you
if you listen,
are you
sorry.
surprised? Is what I'm trying to say, that somebody who's grown up permanently and is from a Western democracy would just look at that and go, "Oh well, tough."
Well, it's very easy and comfortable to be insulated from other people's experiences, and I don't blame him for that. It's a very, I suppose, fortunate position to be in, not to be having the thought of even to think about, there are places where people are treated such and such. There are places that people actually die for having the same dignity as I have. There are places, and of course, in this country, people died to have the dignity and freedom that we enjoy. And also, 453 54 British servicemen and women who didn't come home. I always think about them. And there's an Afghan war memorial in London that I take my children there, and
Yeah.
we look at the faces of those soldiers who didn't come home. And I hope that when we discuss, Afghanistan, we also reflect on the sacrifices that Britain made
Mm.
and those men and women made, and their families, of course, and many who were maimed. And I don't know how would they be feeling about seeing the Taliban sponsored cricket team normalized in the sense that, of course, I was tortured by the
Mm.
Taliban.
God.
I lost relatives fighting the Taliban. I lost an uncle just weeks before the Taliban's return to power fighting. It's all emotional, personal to a lot of people, but what I think pales in comparison to what a woman, my cousins, my relatives, the people that I speak to daily, those who listen to my podcast, and the podcast in English language, and people in far reaches of Afghanistan who learned English and who would be listening to this interview that we'll post later,
Mm.
who will be thinking about, there's a world apart, but we need more than ever. We need allies, they would say,
Okay.
allies who will stand up for us, allies who will be our voice that we don't have.
Well, let's see
And we're
what
fortunate to have that voice.
we are. Let's see what people say. Thank you very much, Ro, for speaking to me today. Ro Jacobi, host of the Afghanistan